I decided also to extend talking about stakeholder feedback and engagement and communication. Also, about the issue resolution. Stakeholder engagement isn't just about keeping the people informed, it's also about ensuring they feel heard and valued. And by implementing a structured feedback mechanism and proactively resolving their concerns, project managers can enhance the trust and the project success. So, again, stakeholder satisfaction is critical for project success. And one of these ways to ensure the project success is by having a proactive issue resolution to ensure a continued stakeholder support. By utilizing continuous feedback loops to improve the engagement and communication between you and the stakeholders, you ensure that all of these issues are resolved and your, let's say, project is in good shape in terms of communication. Collecting the feedback from the stakeholders. So, effective feedback collection involves mix of formal and informal approaches. You may follow the structured, let's say, surveys or formal feedback, like we call it the formal feedback mechanisms, like surveys or interviews or focus groups, to understand the stakeholder concerns. We also have these informal feedback methods, including one-to-one discussions, emails, or casual check-ins, phones. So these are called informal methods. We have also this feedback tracking system by having a stakeholder register, and then you collect the stakeholder, let's say feedback on the stakeholder register, or using a CRM specific tools that it's used to collect the feedback from these stakeholders, or sentiment analysis, which we already explained. So using these tracking tools ensures that the feedback is documented and acted upon, and there is a corrective actions is being taken against, let's say, the negative feedback. Addressing the stakeholder concerns proactively. So, addressing these stakeholders' concerns before they escalate prevents the delays and dissatisfaction. By using a structured approach like the root cause analysis and renegotiation, the project managers here can resolve the conflicts efficiently before escalating while maintaining stakeholder trust. So these tools, including the root cause analysis to understand why there is an issue, to understand why the stakeholders isn't satisfied about, for example, the communications or the engagement. When you identify the root cause, you come up with an action plan to resolve these issues, to avoid falling into to such exist or avoid to have such issues. So also following these conflict resolution techniques by collaborative problem solving, also by compromising and renegotiation with the stakeholders. Finally, you have these decision logs, and decision logs where it's like a document or a log that it documents all of the resolution actions and agreements between you and the stakeholders to ensure the accountability. We also talked about the stakeholder satisfaction metrics, but now let's see some of these specific, let's say, metrics. Stakeholder satisfaction isn't just a subjective topic. It can be measured, but how? By using a surveys or engagement analytics and scoring models, the project managers here can assess sentiment and make, let's say, data-driven improvements. When we talked about this tool, which is called satisfaction surveys, which rates the stakeholder experience within a project or within a process or within a system or, let's say, a deliverable that you have delivered. So satisfaction survey is one of these tools to measure and to have a data about these satisfaction metrics or the satisfaction scores within your stakeholders. We also have this net promoter score, which is NPS, to measure the likelihood of stakeholder recommendation. Third, we have the engagement level. And engagement level, it can be, let's say, tracked by tracking, let's say, the attendance level or the attendance number of the meeting, also the responsive to the project updates or acknowledging your messages or your communication. So these are to have a measurable way to measure the satisfaction of your stakeholders, you can utilize these, let's say, metrics. Updating the stakeholder engagement plan. You remember when we established the stakeholder engagement plan where we set all of these stakeholders, let's say, communication needs, engagement needs, the frequency of the updates, what to send, what to avoid to send, the level of detail, what else? We talked about the let's say the frequency of these engagement as well. So stakeholder needs evolves over the time, requiring an adjustment to engagement strategies. By continuously refining the let's say the stakeholder engagement plan, communication plans, project managers can ensure that the communication and involvement and satisfaction remains aligned with the project objectives. When you recall, when we let's say when we talk about updating the stakeholder engagement plan, but when we have to update the stakeholder engagement plan, for example, in case if there's a new stakeholder has joined the project, where he has a new requirements, has a new engagement, let's say requirements, has a new communication requirements to be met. Also, when there is a case where the stakeholder priorities change. So, in case that you have faced with some of these stakeholders were having different priorities, and some of these stakeholders' priorities had changed, it's the time to assess whether the existing, let's say, strategies to communicate and to engage with the stakeholder needs a refinement or not. Based on that, you decide to update the stakeholder or the stakeholder engagement plan or not. When also there is a major project scope adjustment happen or occur. And with that being said, in case of one of these deliverables have changed to deliver maybe a certain additional deliverables or features or value to the stakeholders, you might see that the stakeholders have turned from, let's say, medium impact or medium influence to high influence. Now it's the time to change the engagement plan to tailor these updates on the project to, let's say, to the stakeholder engagement plan. How you can revise the stakeholder engagement plan by incorporating the feedback trends and adjusting the communication methods or updating the engagement frequency. Now let's look into these common challenges that you might face when trying to resolve an issue with the stakeholders. So every project faces a stakeholder challenges. Understanding the root causes and maintaining transparent communication and finding common ground rules are essential for overcoming these obstacles or challenges. And some of these, let's say, challenges, including the resistant to change, which are the stakeholders who hesitant to adapt the new processes or the new techniques or the new methods. That so one of these reasons is resistant to change. Also, you have the conflicting interest, and conflicting interest, it can be one of these challenges when you are a project manager trying to resolve an issue, for example, within your project between two stakeholders, um, maybe to align the priorities or, let's say, to focus on a certain deliverable. So it ensures that you have a balancing or optimizing technique to balance the different stakeholder priorities. The third engagement or the third challenge here you might face when trying to resolve an issue within the stakeholders, it's lack of engagement. Stakeholders disengaged or unresponsive. So ensures that you have these techniques to bring back these stakeholders to keep them engaged and responsive within your project. The best practices for having an effective stakeholder issue resolution. So stakeholder issues should never be ignored. By actively listening and setting a clear expectation and maintaining the follow up process, the project managers can foster a long term stakeholder confidence. Again, so these best practices, including the active listening to ensure the stakeholder feel heard and valued, also by setting a clear expectation to define the response time and resolution processes, follow up constantly as one of these best practices that you need to have as a project manager, like checking back to confirm whether the stakeholder concerns were resolved or not. What is the role of communication when trying to resolve an issue? Communication is at the heart of issue resolution. And by being transparent, encouraging open dialogue, and having a clear escalation procedures, projects can resolve the issues effectively and also maintain the stakeholder trust. The role of communication here and the importance of having a transparency. Transparency is by keeping all of the stakeholders informed about the issue resolution progresses, uh, also to ensure having a two-way communication as part of your communication by encouraging an open dialogue. It's like sending and receiving and confirming that your message were sent and received by the stakeholders. Escalation protocols by defining when and how and what to escalate, what type of issues to escalate. So this is the role of communication in issue resolution. Let's look at one of these case studies where we have a successful stakeholder issue resolution. Successful issue resolution involves proactive engagement. Also, expert involvement or expert judgment and continuous dialogue. This case study highlights how the targeted stakeholder engagement helped to overcome the critical concerns and drive the project success. Where we have a scenario where there's a software project for a financial institution faced a security concern from compliance stakeholders. So, to overcome this, let's say, security concerns, the team has engaged closely with a security expert and held a targeted discussion to address these concerns and to look for, let's say, mitigation strategies to avoid or to face these risks or issues. So, as a result of this communication and engagement with the, let's say, with the stakeholders, with the expert judgment by involving the security experts and setting, let's say, a resolution of that issue, the stakeholder confidence has improved, and the project, let's say, approval was secured. Again, this case study highlights how targeted stakeholder engagement and open dialogue helped, let's say, to overcome these critical concerns and drive the project success. And to summarize our session on talking about the importance of having an feedback from the stakeholders and to ensure having, let's say, a collaborative issue resolution, engaging the stakeholders effectively means continuously collecting the feedback and addressing their concerns, also measuring their satisfaction and refining the engagement strategies as needed to meet the stakeholder needs and, let's say, refinement requests. By implementing the best practices we already have discussed, by encouraging an open dialogue, we also talked about actively listening and ensuring there is clear expectations from the start and follow up constantly with the stakeholders. The project managers can build strong stakeholder relationships and drive the project success.